Legacy Evolution Wave 4 in under 60 minutes, let's go. We are just flying through these things, ain't we? Woo, lads. Now, most notably, the final waves of these things very much tend to be mostly repaints, and this one isn't much of an exception, but there is some new stuff to actually talk about here, so we'll have fun with that. There's some interesting retools, your bog standard repaints, and an entirely unique situation, so without much further delay, let's get into things, starting with G1 Bombshell in over 60 seconds, let's go. Rounding out our trio of G1 Insecticons, we finally have Bombshell making an appearance in Wave 4. And how does he fare? Well, I'm not the biggest fan, I'll be honest. As I alluded to moments ago, he is in fact a retool of his previous release mate, Shrapnel. And I genuinely think Shrapnel wore it better, no offense. Like, I'm well aware that the whole gimmick of these guys is that they're supposed to be, you know, blocky and a bit shit looking, but I feel like they're also supposed to be a little bit charming, and I just don't feel any of the charm with Bombshell, which is a shame because he was the one I was looking forward to the most. He's just a brick with some features. And honestly, I just think the robot mode fares just as bad. Like, I don't know if it's accurate, but this guy just has so many swaths of unpainted grey, and it just breaks things up so much more compared to his previous teammates, including parts of his head. And by parts, I mean most. Yeah, most of the head still counts as a part. I think he would have overall the cleanest profile of any Transformer were it not for the fucking gigantic silver elephant in the fucking room. That's unnecessary. Like, I might get thrown in prison for posting this for citing offensiveness, because fuck me, that's horrible to look at. His knees are also perma-bent, and there's nothing I can actually do about it. He's also got these leg pieces that double up as guns on 5mm ports, but honestly, they look better just staying where they were. Like, honestly, there's no point in trying to remove them. That's the furthest his head can turn. Did you sleep funny or something, Bombshell? Something something Evo Fusion, something something silver gun. Honestly, in regards to this guy, the biggest Bombshell is the fucking one he dropped on my expectations as a collector. They got gradually better and you had so much promise of being the best, but instead you just ended up being probably the weakest one. Thanks for playing, now get the fuck off my soundstage. G1 Detritus in over 60 seconds, let's go. One of two Junkions we're going to speak about today, apparently. And it's none other than Detritus, who I believe was an E-Hobby repaint turned into a new character, or he was a new character who got an E-Hobby repaint. It doesn't really matter. Now let's address the most interesting thing about Detritus here. He is a retool of the Siege Hound mold, but he's not just any retool. He's the fabled Earthhound retool. You know, on a more functional level, he's more like a reshell than anything else. But the thing that makes this one so much more interesting is that this one came out before Hound, but after Hound was revealed by a good couple of years. As far as another use of the Siege Hound mold goes, I really like this one thanks to the new shell. Like, he just handles ridiculously fucking well, but the colours are a ridiculously mixed bag. I like the silver painted wheels, I like the sandy colour, the browns and the reds are really good complementary colours. However, the unpainted plastic that will go on to make up a lot of Detritus is very snot coloured and I don't like it. Also, take note of this Decepticon symbol, it's going to be on the final exam. Honestly, as far as a retool of Siege Hound, this guy's probably the best addition to come out of it. No backpack. Legs that you can actually stand together. This is all just stuff to keep in mind because I ain't doing a comparison, but I'll be talking about one of these guys next week. Admittedly, my only complaints really are, I think the chest just looks a little bit too big, and while not a complaint, I'm amazed he didn't get a new head. Granted, that one looks absolutely stellar, to be honest. And then on the topic of new shit, this one actually comes with a new handheld gun as opposed to the rifle, and a new shoulder rocket with a hidden feature. It's Evo Fusion. Don't even act like you didn't know it was coming. He's Evo Fusioning all over the place. Joe Hasbro genuinely rocked up this year, said it's fusion in time, and then Evo'd all over the fucking place. Now, can you remember what faction he was? Because if you don't, then you're just wasting my time and yours. Like, you're not even taking your education seriously. Yeah, apparently this guy's something of a double dealer, an arms dealer. You know, he plays both sides. He's a bit of an old bisexual, which to be fair is pretty peak. Yeah, speaking honestly about Detritus, I wrote him off and only got him a couple of months ago, and honestly, that was a fool's errand on my part. If you ignore the alleged Junkion connection and just look at him as his own entity, he's pretty fucking cool. And speaking of stuff I was expecting to write off and ended up thinking was pretty fucking cool, let's talk about Cyberverse Shadow Striker in over 60 seconds, let's go. Yes, indeed, our first foray into the Cyberverse line as far as I'm aware, and also one of the only new molds that we're going to be talking about today. It feels like it's being targeted at me at this point. I'll be honest, with this size and shape, this kind of figure just makes me think of Brunt that came with Triptychon. Not fucking Brunt, I meant Full Tilt, you know, that companion piece. And I mean, this one just feels like it could be the companion piece to the Nemesis. But as it stands as a vehicle on its own, there isn't really much going on. You can see the engine block here, the insignia on the hood there, some headlights that are somewhat painted, some rear detailing, and a roof that doesn't want to tab in because I'm doing what it's supposed to do and storing the gun in there. What does the gun look like? Well, I mean, it looks like this. Or this if you're feeling a bit zesty. And since we're here, we might as well talk about Shadow Striker's robot form. From what limited knowledge I have of Cyberverse, this is one of the more inaccurate reimaginings, but apparently this is a character that you can kind of get away with that with. I don't really know. I should actually sit down and watch Cyberverse sometime. For me, one of the best features of Shadow Striker is that head sculpt. There's just something so dynamic and warped and just fucking lovable about it, to be quite honest. Outside of that, you've got car kibble form in the back, but this has to be some of the cleanest car kibble I think you've ever seen. In case it weren't obvious, with this design and layout, Shadow Striker is very clearly intended to become someone else. But we won't talk about that someone else today, because eventually they'll get their own little appearance in this lineup. But the best bit is that draws me to the biggest point of contention I have with this robot, really. I hate this as an accessory. It's articulated on hinged pin pieces, or whatever you want to call them, but the biggest gripe I have is the roof is entirely clear plastic, and there's no pin in the part connecting it, so all it takes is one little motion and it comes off completely. Zooming in with the camera, you can see the stress marks of that piece there, the two on this one. I'm just waiting for the whole thing to go, and I'm going to be really fucking angry when it does. Oh, and hey, we're keeping the shoulders aesthetic alive. Why not? You only live once. Like, especially in your case, I'll be amazed if you're ever seen again in toy form. Which is a shame, because I'd say you're actually pretty cool. But, alas, talking about ones that you're never going to see again in toy form, let's talk about our next one, who's making a return in Legacy United. Robots in Disguise 2015 Strongarm in over 60 seconds. Let's go. Or for all I know, she could already be out on shelves. Currently, for your context, I'm recording this on September 11. Hey, why is there a big plane? Indeed, this is just a wave of first, because I believe this is our first foray into RID 2015, the sequel to Prime, and probably one of the fandom's least favourite shows. Editor's note, I said least favourite, not hated. Now, for those among you who may not know, this is a retool of Legacy Elite 1, who we spoke about back in June, or May, or whenever the it was. Indeed, Strongarm's just a big, chunky police car retool of the Homer. I very much with it, you know. I actually don't have many complaints. Rolls about as consistently as what I imagine the police would roll, unless I'm calling them because someone's breaking into my house, in which case they're going to arrest me for even looking at the trespasser. Big fan of the big chunky light bar. Not as big a fan of the weapon storage. I wish they did more. And yeah, as I say, outside of that, just a lot of nice whites and blues. This bit kind of reminds me of the car they used as the basis for Alternator's wheeljack. And I'm not going to lie, it kind of makes me want Alternator's wheeljack. Also, there's just something about this front profile that I think does a lot of the work. Actually, you know, looking at this alt mode, it kind of looks like it'd make a really good tow truck. However, in a cruel twist of fate, I do not think this robot mode makes a particularly good tow truck. Yes, for better or for worse, this is where it comes out in full swing that this is a retool of Elite 1. Honestly, speaking about the highs, I think the sculpt work is very nice. The new sculpted details and the new color palette really work. And I must admit, that head design, I just absolutely love it. I don't know why, there's just a lot going on for it. Now, talking about my negatives, is it just me or is the head a little bit overpainted? Like, I'm sure it's accurate, but outside of the Autobot symbol, it's the only part of the body that has anything other than blue and white. And before any funny f***er tries to get technical, this is unpainted plastic, so it doesn't count. These parts on the shoulder can be annoying, particularly if you try and move the arm out. It just sort of collides with everything. Or in case you didn't know, not loose, but you can't put any weight on it or she will do the splits. Like, they're not necessarily bad, but anytime you try and move the shoulders, they have a... Actually, no, to be fair, they have a good degree of motion. I take it all back. Also, this backpack is absolutely fucking heinous. Is it your first day of school there, Strongarm? I hope you get a fucking flushy in the toilet, hun. Also, the new 5mm gun accessory is just simple enough, but just detailed enough to be good. Honestly, if you bought Elite or Minerva, I wouldn't say you're missing too much with this one, but if you fancy something a bit different and a new fembot, I would utterly recommend Strongarm, to be fair. I think she's quite sound. Not to be a simp or anything, because liking girls is gay. Remember, lads, bros before hoes. Stay safe out there, kings. What the f*** am I even talking about? Just f***ing get on with the video, you twat. IDW Bludgeon in over 60 seconds, let's go. At least I think he's IDW. That's alright, I'm sure there'll be some lovely legionnaires in the comments that'll tell me if I'm right or wrong. To be fair, more likely tell me that I'm wrong, but oh well. Won't stray on this guy for too long because there isn't much to say. He's Tarn, but he's in Halloween colours. Got some really nice orange here to break up the action. I think the choice of green is quite a strong one. The weapon storage on the sword is a little bit diabolical, but given that he's a robotic samurai skeleton, I think I'll let it pass. Okay, now before I go devoting time to all the new shit, let's first talk about the differences with Tarn in display. He probably does not wear those like this, although so far he is doing a better job than his predecessor. Get it up your way. But perhaps instead he would wear them like this. Or honestly, maybe even like this. I think they're all better alternatives to the original, to be fair. And if I may now quickly clear up another reason why this one's better. Eat a gravity. I would honestly just say probably this guy's just an improvement aesthetically. First, that head sculpt is a thing of legend within this fucking fandom, so to finally have a new one that doesn't look quite as goofy as the Revenge of the Fallen one, I'll take it, please and thank you. And then there's also the new sword accessory to talk about. Like, you tell me that this guy doesn't look like he means fucking business with his new dynamic accessory. Just some fucking Shogun-ass heroism going on with this one. I fucking love it. Honestly, I think the only downside about this sword is that there isn't a dedicated place to sheath it, other than in the fucking hole where your head used to be. Honestly, for me, on every metric, Bludgeon is just a vast improvement. Like, subjectively, I think his colours and aesthetic are far more superior, along with the new head and accessory. And objectively, he isn't a floppy piece of shit, which, I mean, perfect. Also, spoilers, but I think the two Bludgeons they've done in Legacy have been far more interesting than the two Tarns. But you guys are going to have to wait till next year before I start getting into that. But for now, let's get talking about a couple of final things before we wrap this video up. G1 Trashmaster in over 60 seconds, let's go. Yes, indeed, our boy is our last weaponizer for this line. And our last Junkion. But he is a first of something. This boy right here is the first Voyager weaponizer, and how does it fare? We'll get to that. For now, I just kind of want to talk about this alt mode. It's very fun, very exactly what you expect. You know, looks ideal for disposing of evidence in the form of, well, I suppose any evidence is probably bad if you're disposing of it. Admittedly, I'm not 100% convinced about the old fucking Chompa Chomp from Mario sticking out the back of it, but here we are. I must admit, this random piece that's painted silver with chains just kind of gives it a different edge than what they were probably looking for. Other than that, the guy is exactly what you expect. He rolls somewhat when he feels like it, particularly on the back wheels. And they were kind enough to feature these parts, which, well, when you look at them and you move them around, you'll see that they do fucking nothing. I like the sculpt work they've done in the front of the cab here. I just think it looks good. I can't believe my suggestion for animated Retgar in Legacy from Prime Bulkhead was taken and just kind of remashed into this new monstrosity. But I'm sure you're all interested to see how he fares in robot mode. Honestly, in his robot mode, he's just very distinct. But I could see this guy standing shoulder to shoulder with SS86 Retgar and his repaints better than I could any of the deluxes. Look, there's one now. Oh, you're just one of the random repaints. Oh, okay, never mind. Get the f*** out of here. Interestingly enough, going back to that Bulkhead comment, that head looks strikingly familiar. Also, this back profile just has to be one of the worst. Need someone to change your nappy there, f***wit. Also, still not overly enthused about his weapon. Is it just me, or is it when Transformers have melee weapons, it's a bit of a gamble, but it's a serious one? You know, like, it could be the definition between looking badass and looking like Trashmaster. But it's alright, he's got these weird sculpted, what I'm assuming are supposed to be gun things molded into his fists, and they look pretty good. The articulation you'd expect to see is all there, and it all does exactly what it says on the tin. And if I could please have a drum roll for what is the final cumulative effort of the Junkion's weaponizing abilities. 3, 2, 1. Oh my fuck. This is such a half-assed attempt at weaponizing. All it does is just put the core body on the disability register. Like, you took his fucking legs and that's it. I'm just very cold on this whole gimmick at this point. There are some very cool creators that can create some very cool things out of these, but for me, I just at this point in time feel like, what's the actual point? And I have a sneaking suspicion that I first come to this conclusion when I finally got this guy in hand. You know, you fucking get this one, it's just like, oh hey, we put Detritus on stilts. Okay, then what? Well, you know, he's a lot taller now. Okay, then what? Whole thing's just something I'm a bit fed up with, to be fair, and when we get to Legacy United, you're going to notice the distinct lack of coverage on it. Also, it's quite unintentional, but I do find it very funny that he just looks really pissed off at someone stealing his fucking legs. Prime Dreadwing in over 60 seconds, let's go. Fucking goated repaint. That shiny blue. That fucking striking red. The gold highlights. The paint damage that was likely caused by my fat fingers. Or falling off a shelf, that's usually what does it in this house. Indeed, Dreadwing is just simply a repaint of his brother, so I will not spend too much time going over stuff that I don't need to. Let's talk about Robot. Peak Boy. It really is amazing what a repaint can do for a figure. Oh I kind of just said the same thing about Bludgeon, didn't I? it. The swaths of red and gold come out in full force, with the blue taking pure dominance, and it honestly just fucking works so nicely. Also, a little bit of detail that I forgot to mention. In the chest, and here on the wings, is a new variant of a Decepticon symbol to resemble some sort of Air Force insignia, I'm assuming. The Lord of Transformers Prime is just a crackhead tweaking in the corner. I don't want to go near him and I don't want to talk to him. One thing I did forget to mention in the previous version of this review is that this head has this piece, which I'm assuming is for transformation, but it doesn't really matter. Also, this head sculpt just fucking pops in these colours so much more. Also, I don't know what the f***'s going on. I just want to talk about Bludgeon again, to be honest. Yeah, this gun don't quite hit the same. Like, I get what it's supposed to be going for, but at the end of the day, I think I just prefer the minigun. I think it looks more cohesive than just penile exhaust. Oh, and I have this weird sinking feeling that he might have broke his butter knife on the way back to his home planet. Because I don't think that's supposed to fucking happen. But it doesn't matter. Peak repaint, peak boy. Get one if you haven't. Okay, I've had to re-record this outro because my mic is a piece of shit, thanks to the phone connection. So, yes, I can't really remember what I originally said. Sorry if it sounds weird, I'm currently holding the microphone, you know, like a real influencer. I think my closing statements on this wave would be there's some really nice repaints, some really solid retools, Bombshell, and a couple of other just little oddities, somewhat new shit that just does its job. And honestly, I'm a big fan of it. I think this is probably my favourite wave since Wave 1. And yeah, I don't really have much else to add to it. This is our final wave, ladies and gentlemen. After this, it's the exclusives, and then I am done with Legacy Evolution. How fast the time has gone. I remember how young and optimistic we all were at the start of this. Well, I wasn't, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.